So welcome back to the driver's seat. As I said, driver is to give you the action of speaking in public and feel that you're in control of your own conference. Thank you for those that have given the feedback, because it's given me some insight into how to be able to structure better and be able to answer your questions. And one of the points that was made was my exercise that I asked you to do was perhaps not clear enough, because not everybody's done it. Not everybody has actually done the exercise and posted a video of themselves within the group. So you still have time to make a very short video of yourself talking to a camera, because it is an exercise just to stand there, be it with your phone or be it with your camera from the PC, to be able to present yourself. And the more you do it, the more you listen to yourself, the more comfortable you become with actually talking. So I'll try to be a little bit clearer on the next exercise that we'll be talking about. Driver's seat, as I wrote down here, is first of all your state, your body state. So we talked to our body state last week. It was the posture, the way you project your voice, the melody. So all that gives the impression of you have confidence when you're talking. If you're hunched up, if you're not feeling comfortable or you're a little bit shy, then that will come across in your body stance, in your body state. So first of all, stand, and I recommend you not to be sitting, so I'm going to stand. Stand tall, look towards the camera, look towards the peripheral vision and see everybody. This week, we're going to be talking about expression, because there is an art to speak. There's the art of leadership and there's the art of speaking of a leader. Next week, we'll talk about, I call it advise. Some people say attention. We'll talk about what context are we talking about? Is it a business pitch? Is it presenting a high performance project in the office? Is it perhaps talking in the courtroom? We have a lawyer with us who's very interested to know how she can portray her counter arguments in a courtroom. But it's also, what is the proposition, the value that you are giving in the speech? So we'll talk about the context and how you're going to be able to speak. And then the last week is how you transmit your message. So we transmit it with our body, we transmit it with our expressions, but you might have support. Now, I haven't used some PowerPoint slides because I wanted to be showing my full self within this presentation, but I've given you last week a summary, and I will do again today a small summary sheet of what points we've covered during this hour. So how do we improve our speaking? Well, we're going to practice all the time. We're going to be listening to videos. We can listen to YouTubers. We can copy or imitate somebody else. It's good. If there's a speaker that you like, listen to him and then record yourself. Talk, do your mini talk on your camera, record yourself and listen to the way you speak. Because the more you speak to yourself, to the camera, in the car, the more comfortable you will feel the day you're going to find yourself in front of other people. Read books, read magazines about what topics you want to talk about, and prepare. If you're going to go to a conference, find out who's talking. You can look people up on LinkedIn. It's so-and-so who's talking. What's she done? She's been in this company, she's done that. Then if there's something that you want to portray or ask, write the question down. And you can ask your question or prepare your question even in advance of a conference. So preparing is very important. Preparation is 90% winning of a situation. Even in a sales pitch or in a negotiation, you need to prepare. Start to speak. Start to practice. Listen to yourself. Practice, practice, practice. I know this might sound boring, but it's really something we need to think about. Ums and ahs. Oh my goodness. Everybody's worried about, just put the slide on here. Everybody's worried about saying ums and ahs. If you go to Toastmaster, which is a group of people that help you learn how to speak better, and there's competitions, regional, country and worldwide competitions in Toastmaster, the first thing they do when you do your first speech is that somebody writes down the number of ums and ahs. Why do we use ums and ahs? Well, we are surrounded by sound, noise, cars, traffic, airplanes. And so we have difficulty keeping that silence. We talked about silence last week, how powerful it was in our speech. Oh, what am I going to say? Now, when we start talking about ums and ahs, it's a way of filling up that space. We start wondering if people are going to know what we're talking about, or if I shut up and not say anything, does it mean that I've actually forgotten? Welcome, Diana. Hi. So when we use the ums and ahs, we feel like we're trying to fill up the space around us. So we don't need to do that. There are transition phrases. Let's move on to, why don't we talk about another important point that I would like to mention? But ums and ahs, we don't need to fill the space. We can just listen. We can allow that pause, and allowing that space gives so much more impact than filling it up with an or an ah. But it doesn't matter. I'm not going to say, I use ums and ahs, so I'm not going to say I'm perfect. So long as it doesn't feel like you're, oh, what am I going to, and people sometimes look at the ceiling. And when you look at the ceiling, I mean, there's no wording up there. So you don't need to look up. Okay, you give yourself a space and then you start talking. A way to help you reprogram your mindset about space and about pausing is to whisper. If you take a couple of words of your speech and just whisper it, learn how to speak very softly, you will start getting more accustomed to that pause and to that silence, and you will feel comfortable not wanting to fill it up with and ahs and noise, because noise is going to make your speech less impactful. The second point, when we talk of expression, before we come into the rhetoric tips, is about how to get the impact of your audience when you start a speech. An introduction is going to open up how we talk. An introduction is a way of getting the attention, the credibility, the topic related, and perhaps even a preview of what you're going to talk about. I did a preview of what the driver was about: state, expression, and then advise and transmit, which we'll reach next week. It gives you an idea of what to expect and anticipation of what you want. So there are many ways to bring an attention grabber to a situation. You can refer to a subject. Today, we're going to talk about speaking, or you can refer to an audience. Perhaps you're a human resource manager and you're talking to other human resource managers. So you can talk about, as human resource managers, we have the need to be able to help our employees. You could talk about teaching. I'm a teacher, and we teachers, we have the power of influencing next generations. So you refer to an audience. You could give a quotation. You could refer to current events. What's going on today in the war or a political situation. You could have a historical reference. You can have an anecdote, something to get people laughing. People use that also to bring the human side of you. When I did my first TEDx, I didn't know really how to start. I talked about pink shoes, made everybody laugh. And so suddenly I felt more comfortable. You could have a startling statement, a statement that's, today, every 30 seconds, a child dies of hunger. When you put a pause there and everyone's like, oh my goodness, it makes you want to think. Humor, anecdote humor, I said, you can have a personal reference. You can talk about something that happened to you. Last year, I had a problem, and you can share that. It shows your vulnerability, and people think, oh, I want to hear more about her. Or you can refer to an occasion or to an event. So the opening statement of your speech is what's going to capture the attention. And then how do you bring that impact? So we're going to talk about the art of speaking like a leader, because leaders have a way of talking, and it's called rhetoric. And in fact, in England, in the 18th century, you could have free teaching of rhetoric, but in public schools, you'd have to pay to learn how to do mathematics. But rhetoric was very important, the art of how to speak. Today, it's an elitist discussion. It's taught in private schools only in England. And most politicians have actually come out of those schools. So there are six tips, which we're going to go through. The first one is breathless sentences. 3 breathless sentences. And as I said, you will get a small resume of what I'm talking about afterwards. You'll be able to download it from the Facebook page. The rule of 3, it brings energy, it can bring fear, it can bring movement, and you can really bring the dynamics. One politician would say, education, education, education. By repeating it 3 times, it really sinks in. You could talk about war, death, pain, but putting your arguments into 3 is a lot more convincing, compelling, and credible. So I've got my rule of 3, always there. Here, there, and everywhere. Even Shakespeare, Romeo, Romeo. Where art thou, Romeo? So when you are speaking, you can use this rule of 3 for everything that you want to talk about, because it brings so much more impact. You know, I want to teach, I want to learn, I want to transmit. You can play with the letters. I said convincing, compelling, and credible using 3 C's. It doesn't have to be always with the same letter, but the way that you impact those 3 brings the energy. So 3 breathless sentences, rule of 3, very important. The second point is repeating the sentence, the opening clause. So again, you're using the rule of 3, but you're going to repeat the opening clause of your sentence. Like Mr. Churchill, when he said, we shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, and we shall fight in the streets. By repeating that first phrase, you put an impact again in what you're trying to say. Repetition, it opens up the emotions. It brings out the authentic sound of passion. And when somebody's passionate, you want to listen, you want to stay. So I could say, I love Italy. I love Italians. I love pasta. I love tiramisu. I love all of you. And the passion comes through. And it sweeps you away because you're making a point and it takes you on. Think of the salesman when he's trying to sell his whatever. You know, he might say, I'm not selling this for 20. I'm not selling it for 15. I'm not even selling it for 10. You get this deal for £5. The way they bring them through, you're like, wow, I'm getting a good deal. Because he's brought this way of 1, 2, and 3. So the repetitive sentence, and listen to it with politicians. The English are very good with this. You hear them in their phrases when they repeat. But the more you repeat, the more the passion comes through. The third point is 3 balancing statements. If a sentence sounds balanced, we think that the situation is balanced and our brain is attracted to it. So if we come back to Shakespeare, to be or not to be. Ask not what your country wants from you, what you can do for your country. It might be illusion. It might be false, but the fact that we're giving this balancing statement makes us feel that the situation is also good. Our brains are attracted to it. We're not looking for the future. We're looking for the future, not the past. We're working together, not against each other. We're thinking of what we can do rather than what we cannot do. So these balancing statements puts a lot of power in what you're talking. I can talk, I can feel. How you balance. So balancing statements, I don't know why the brain is attracted to it. Metaphors. Number 4 is metaphors. Did you know that we actually talk metaphors every 16 words in our language? It's very powerful. It's a way of bringing images, a way you can make people be attracted to what you're saying, understand your world, or you could repulse them. If we think of, how could I say, images of love. We could talk about our family being a garden, and I want to water and nurture my friendships and my family, and they're like a sunshine, and with sunshine, the love is empowered. But we can also talk about disgust, animals, horrible things, which will push us away, which will repel. And this is actually, it's quite, we've got to be very careful because it's the language of genocide and it's the language of hate. When we use a metaphor, it changes how people will react. They say that a metaphor in a pitch can change the way an investor will invest in your project, or he will not invest in your project by just changing the metaphor in the text, or how a patient will want to follow or not a doctor, or how they will be perceived. So if we think of images that are, I don't know, of disgust, let me give the example of the Calais jungle. I don't know if you recall, in Europe, in northern France, there was a very big camp of migrants, and the migrants were stacking up trying to get to England, and there was a terrible place which became called the jungle. But jungle means that people are like wild animals, and it's a way of talking so badly, of depicting migrants who are actually vulnerable people like wild animals. And in the world of hate, Hitler talked of snakes for the Jews. In the Hutsi and the Tutsi war, they were called cockroaches, as if vermin you want to get rid of. So metaphors can have a very negative impact, and it can have a very positive impact. We talk about the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring was a terrible situation, but spring makes you think of flowers and sunshine and something nice. But we know that the Arab Spring is going to take 2 or 3 generations for people to get over. So a metaphor has a lot of power, and using the right metaphor can make people be attracted or to repulse them away. So choose carefully which metaphors you want to talk about. We can say our conversation is littered with metaphors, scattered with metaphors. We're reaching out to metaphors. Again, 3 times, using different metaphors for the same aspect. But on the positive side, we could say, her eyes were like diamonds. She has a heart of gold. He's a shining star. Or the snow was like a white blanket. So it does give a lot of poetry, and it allows people to understand better the world that you're trying to transmit. So metaphors is a way of sharing and getting people to understand your world, because maybe you're in a technical world and a metaphor will simplify the aspect of where you are. Exaggeration. Now, I'm half Spanish, so We exaggerate a lot in the Mediterranean world. When we exaggerate our emotions, it gives distortion to our perspective. Oh, it was so fantastic. It manifests in our speech. We feel, wow, there's sort of an energy. Some people can go over the top. I've been waiting for this day. I couldn't sleep last night. I was so excited. For some culture, I think it's very important to understand the cultures of who you're speaking to, because some cultures understand better than others. And not everybody talks about culture when you're speaking, but the interpretation will be different. And I like to share a story. During my MBA, I was very close friends with an Italian lady called Simonetta. And Simonetta and I would have counter arguments on projects that we were working on. No, and I don't agree, and that's not possible, and mamma mia. 20 years later, I came across one of our fellow students who was Japanese. And Miwa said to me, how are you doing? What are you up to? Who do you keep in contact? And I said, well, Simonetta and I are very friends. And she's like, you used to always fight with Simonetta. How can you be friends? And I'm like, no, she's a really good friend of mine. She's the godmother of my daughter. And Miwa just hadn't understood that our exaggeration, our way of discussing things was just not part of the way she saw. She just saw two people with a lot of counter arguments and a lot of energy. So exaggeration is understood in certain cultures more than others. And you have to be a little bit wary of where you're talking. Because if you say, oh, there was 100 million things going on, I was actually only 10 or 15. My children know. So when I say, oh, there's loads to eat, you know, they know that there's food, but they know now that I can exaggerate, but exaggeration has fun and brings the energy into a speech. So when you exaggerate, people will manifest that you're on the top of the world. The last point of expressions is rhythm. It seems absolutely crazy, but the linguistics talk of the process of the fluency of a language. And when you have a word, when you say something that rhymes, people think that it's more believable. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. We'd love it, you know, if there was just eating an apple every day, there wouldn't be problems. But we know it's not true, but everybody loves rhymed phrases. So life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating it for yourself. Nobody wants pain, but to have a beautiful rainbow, you need a little bit of rain. So all these rhymes, you're trying to find them and find them working out. Very easy. You go onto Google and you say words that rhyme with. So when you're preparing your speech, you can try and find a word that is a rhythm to what you're saying. So I've gone a little bit quickly, but if I come back to my 6 points, my first point is about 3 breathless sentences, the rule of 3, repeating, the energy, the fear. The second point is about respective sentences where the opening clause is the same. We shall fight, we shall fight, we shall fight. It sweeps people onto the next one, which is balancing statements. It is to be or not to be. Where am I going? Is it an illusion? We are looking for the future and not the past. Metaphors. Metaphors are important because they allow people to understand better your world. Especially if your world is a technical world, try to simplify it. When we're speaking, we need to have a discussion. We need to vulgarize the discussion and make it more simple. Exaggeration. So I exaggerate brings the emotional perspective into, it can distort, but it gives a lot of energy when I exaggerate. Hello, Alexander, welcome. And the sixth point is rhythm. So we're talking about the 6 rhetoric points for speaking, 3 breathless sentences, 3 balancing statements, 3, oh, I've got a missing here, 3 repetitive sentences, and then we have the metaphors, we have the exaggeration, and we have the rhythm. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. People think that when something is balanced or is rhythm, it's more truthful. It's the way the brain seems to function. We're attracted to it. Okay, so rhetoric is an art of speaking, and there are many videos, there's a lot of people talking, but it has a lot of impact when you structure your speech, when you are going to prepare something, to have that opening statement that's going to bring a lot of power. And then how are you going to push the information through to the people that are listening to you? By repeating, by using your pauses. Last week we talked about your voice, the power of your body stance, and now it's the impact of your words. And you let them sink in. You let people understand what you're trying to say. So, if you're meeting people, because we speak in different contexts. So if we're speaking in a context of doing a talk, you prepare your talk, you know what you're going to say, you're going to stand up, you're going to present it. Maybe in the office, a high presentation in front of other colleagues, you're presenting your latest project, or you're presenting a counter argument. But we can also have a speaking moment when we talk in networking, when you've got a glass and you're saying, hello, nice to meet you, can I interrupt? When you want to express yourself with other people. So you can ask people to join your conversation. What do you think? Do you agree? Tell me your point of view. I would love to hear your opinion. What's your thought about this point? In a meeting, it could be a little bit more formal. Have you anything to add to what I've said? So you can ask people to come into your conversation, come into what you're saying, and express yourself. You can interrupt. Somebody's talking, and sometimes when you hear somebody and you hear something that you have a strong opinion about, you can say, I'm sorry, or excuse me, or could I add to that? May I jump in here to say that? I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I thought that our meeting was on Thursday, not on Wednesday. Have I got it wrong? No, a way of interrupting in a discussion, but also of asking or participating in a conversation. Hello, may I join you? Sometimes you're in a meeting or a conference and you're on your own and you see a group of people. Do you dare go and see them? Do. Go up, say hello. Hello, nice to meet you. Did you like the conference? Did you enjoy the conference? Start making a conversation where you get them to participate, and suddenly you're part of that group talking together. It's not always easy, those first moments of contact. And speaking is something that we need to practice. If you're going to that conference and you want to ask a question, maybe you've prepared it in advance. Maybe you've done your Google and looked up who are the speakers. We can find out a lot on who they're speaking, what they're saying. Maybe the organizers give you the list of participants. Look them up. I'm interested in that company or in that person. I'm trying to find them out. Look for the picture. Oh, so it's you. Or, yes, I recognize you. You can come up. Or I saw you spoke last week on LinkedIn. I saw the article. It was interesting. Make people feel special. When you talk to them, make them say you're interested in what they're doing. People always have a bit of an ego and are happy to speak about themselves. So you flatter them and you allow them to be able to start talking to you. So my exercise for today is to get you to imagine structuring a small speech. Now, you all have different themes. Maybe we'll share in a moment what's your passion, or we can see if we can together help you define, or what would you like to talk about. But the exercise is to choose a topic, and I'm going to show you, I could show you the, I don't know if it's still working, my iPad, open it up. I could show you the sustainable goals. I'm not sure if you all know about the sustainable goals, but this is 17 goals, and there's many topics to talk about. So if you're passionate about the sustainable goals, you can choose one of them: poverty, climate action, life below water. Just find one little thing and try to apply the 6 rhetoric rules to a little speech. So I tried to give an example today, and I'm going to talk, I made this up while I was waiting for the start of the session. I thought maybe I'll show an example. The idea would be to talk about plastic waste. What can we do? Plastic cups, plastic bottles, plastic bags. We see them here, there, and everywhere. Our oceans are filled with plastic, from the home, in the rivers, and from industries. In fact, if we do not stop, our oceans are going to pop. We see the great garbage pack as it grows and grows, and we will drown in a tide of plastic. What is the problematic of all this plastic? How can it stop? So I played with the 6 different rules of repeating, of breathlessness, of a rhythm, of a metaphor, the tide of plastic. Try to give some power just to a little speech on plastic. So the idea is that each one of you choose something and try to apply your 6 rules. Film yourself. If you want to share in the Facebook group, you're welcome to share it with us. If you want to do the test now, you can do it now. I'm going to give you the speech, a little moment for you to be able to present something. But you'll see that by using these 6 tips of rhetoric, your speaking has a lot more power, and it's more poetically beautiful.
Can you repeat, or can you show the 6?
So you want me to share them, okay?
Yeah, because I just have 5 on my notes, so I'm looking for the 6th one.
Okay, so the 6, I haven't got one slide with them. These are really my notes, and that's why I will send you a PDF with all this written up. I did it last week. I don't know if you saw in the Facebook group, I made a PDF of what I talked about. So the 6 tips, the first one is 3 breathless sentences. The rule of 3: education, education, education. Put your arguments into 3. It's more convincing, more compelling, and it's more credible. Here, there, and everywhere. Romeo, Romeo, art thou Romeo? So that's the first one, is 3 breathless sentences. When I say breathless, it's to give the energy. Did you know? Did you know that? 1, 2, 3. By putting the breathlessness in, you bring the energy into the room. If I lower the pace, then I slow it down. So 3 sentences that can be breathless. Then you have the 3 repetitive sentences where the opening clause is repeated. So it's the first stage of the sentence that's being repeated. We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, and we shall fight in the streets. That was Winston Churchill. I love, I love, I love. Or I can hate. I hate talking in public. I hate standing up in front of people. I hate showing my emotions. Totally the contrary. But by repeating the same thing, you bring the power. I am passionate about educating young children. I am passionate about seeing young people evolve. I am passionate about transmitting my passion. Repetitiveness. So the repeating of the beginning of the phrase. The third one was the balancing statements. to be or not to be. And as I said, a balancing statement is, if it sounds balanced, in our minds, we think that it's something balanced, that the situation is balanced and our brains are attracted to. So it might be illusion. We're looking for the future, not the past. We're looking towards working together and not against each other. We're thinking what we can do and not we can't do. There's an advert at the moment in Switzerland on Credit Suisse, the bank, and it talks about entrepreneurship, and it's, you know, how the entrepreneur finds the problems of what you can do rather than the problems of what you cannot do. And I hear the music of that advert when I think of balancing statements. The fourth point was metaphors. So we talked about metaphors provide a picture to help other people enter your world. So their metaphors are very powerful to project something. I want to nurture my family. I want to spread sunshine around me. I'm going to put all the love. And we've got to be careful with negative metaphors that can repulse people or can push people away. And I talked about the metaphors of hate that we see in certain situations. I talked about the Calais jungle depicting migrants as wild animals, and that's very dangerous. And nobody counteracts it. But a lot of the journalists use metaphors. But her heart is of gold. Her eyes were shining like diamonds. The snow was a white blanket. The wind has swept us up and took us somewhere. Those metaphors that can transmit a lot of passion in your talk. The fifth one is exaggeration. So I exaggerate. I'm so happy to be here. It's so fantastic. It's really good. I've been waiting for this day. I didn't sleep all night. I was so nervous. Exaggeration works very well in lots of in certain cultures, more of the Mediterranean than the Nordic. So I always wary on the exaggeration of who is my audience, who's listening to me. I find that, yeah, Mediterranean people exaggerate more, and you understand and you negotiate. I mean, if you do not negotiate in a Mediterranean country, for example, when you're buying something, they won't be happy. And I was, oh, buy this, buy this. Oh, no, it's not expensive. They like to have, oh, but this is the best in the world. And you negotiate that game is very Mediterranean. And so in certain cultures, the exaggeration, oh, this is the best in the world, that's the way they like to play. So exaggeration is very much in different countries can be depicted differently. And the last point is rhythm. Try to find a rhyme in some of the words that you're talking. We said an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Everybody wants happiness. Nobody wants pain, but to have a little rainbow, you need a bit of rain. So you can play with the rhythm in your speech, which will give more energy. So my idea was that you come to talking about improving your speaking in the context of what you're saying. So you listen to others, you get inspired by other people, you can imitate them, watch videos of people that for you find really emotional, and see what makes it so emotional in their speech. How can you copy them or imitate them? Reading books and magazines instruct your content and helps you, but write it down, your opening statement. How are you going to capture people's attention? And then reflect of your conversations. What did you learn from other people? What would you like to inspire? How would you like to inspire? And you're going to have to practice, practice, practice. It's one of the most difficult points is, how do I practice? So speak to yourself in the car when you're driving. Speak to yourself in the bathroom or in the shower. Sometimes I'm practicing different speeches and they never get told. But the fact that I've repeated them in my brain, in my head, in myself, allows me to feel more confident when I'm going to speak or have a difficult conversation, be it with my children, be it with a boss or with a friend. The fact that I've talked it through several times, that's not good. Maybe I shouldn't say that, or I should say it this way. And the fact that you say it 3 or 4 times on your own, when the moment comes, there's a lot more spontaneity and you feel more comfortable. But you need to practice. For speaking, you need to practice. And we have these wonderful tools. We have this wonderful telephone, which allows us to film yourself. You can do it live on a reel, or you can just use the camera, film, listen. There are audios as well. You can, if you just want to use your voice, you can register your audio on your own and then listen back. And at the beginning of this talk today, I talked about the ums and the ahs, that they are fillers. And obviously it's not always easy to say So you try to find transition phrases. Let me talk about, are we moving on? And then by whispering, by listening to yourself and giving those pauses, you'll be less frightened of leaving some space in your talk. Because sometimes we just want to fill up with noise, and there's so much noise going on outside, the cars, the trains, the planes. It's so good, you fill it up, fill it up. But suddenly when you give yourself that pause, be it in your speaking or being with somebody else, and you give them time to either assimilate what you've said and how you said it, the message comes through a lot more impactful. There are associations like Toastmasters that will actually count your ums and ahs. They will allocate somebody and actually count them. It's quite impressive when you're standing there and you know somebody's going to be doing a little line every time you say or ah. But you can do it for yourself. You can film yourself and then listen just to the ums and ahs and see how you could improve. There's no magical formula, but the more you practice, the more you've prepared and rehearsed what you want to say, the more comfortable you will feel. You will still be intimidated. You'll still be intimidated of how people are looking at you. So we talked last week on making your state, making you feel good, how comfortable you stand, the way you dress, because when you're dressed, you feel better, you feel more comfortable to be able to perform or to give your best. So my idea was that each one of you could choose a topic about something that for you is important and perhaps say a few words. Is there anybody who wants to do the exercise live?
Not ready for it yet, Helen.
You're not ready, Alexander?
Not yet.
So you're going to prepare something for us?
You can do that. Preparing, I can.
Where are you from, Alexander?
We actually know one another. I'm from Geneva.
You're from Geneva?
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you for being here. I'm sorry if I haven't recognized you. I've probably not got the right glasses on.
That's all right. No problem.
Okay. Diana?
Hello. So what will be the exercise? Because I missed the introduction of the course, so I'm not sure. What about the exercises?
So the exercise today is to take a topic, something from the Sustainable Goals, if you want, or a topic that for you is important, and to try to apply the 6 rules of rhetoric that I talked about. So repetitive sentences, breathless sentences, a metaphor, rhythm, exaggeration. If you want to apply it, if you want to write it now, or maybe you want to do it during this week, we'll have questions and answers. So maybe on Thursday, I can get you all to pitch on Thursday.
I think I prefer to prepare it to not to improvise now. I just have a question for you. Which one of these 6 tips for rhetorics that you gave in today's course do you think would be more applicable in debating, in a professional debate,
So
like lawyering?
you're a lawyer, is that right, Diana?
Yes.
I believe you're a lawyer, and you gave a very interesting question last week about how to apply speaking techniques into a courtroom, which I found fascinating. You need to prepare your counter arguments. And I think it's a little bit like a negotiation. You know what your opponent's going to talk about. And when you're going to give your last speech, you want to be able to annihilate his arguments with yours. So by repeating, by using the idea of repetition, 1, 2, and 3, to an argument that he's formed in one sense, and you're going to come here and say, by doing this, by doing this, by doing this, suddenly it sinks in. So give yourself the space, give the pause, because I'm sure the pause is very powerful, even in a courtroom, and prepare the counter arguments. Because if you have all the counter arguments to the discussion in front of you, then when they're going to talk, you've already given the reasons why their reasons are wrong and yours are right. But it's the preparation. And if you have those balancing statements, if you put in a bit of rhythm, if you use a metaphor, those have a lot of power on how people will perceive what you're saying. And I said that a balancing statement gives the idea when it's balanced, it's good for the brain. So by using a balancing statement, the people who are listening, I'm not sure if we're talking of the jury or if we're talking of the judge, they're going to say, it's a balanced statement, that unconsciously they'll feel that, you're right. So it's little by little.
All my public that matters is made by professional judges. No jury in our law system, and no lay magistrates like in England. So only professional judges that I keep appearing before them, because I have cases and other cases, just so it's important for me to make a good appearance in every case, because I return to the same judges.
When you're speaking firmly and slowly, it gives you authority of what you're talking about. You already have that respect and authority because you are there in the courtroom. You've got your lawyer's degree, you already have that. You already have that authority. So you mustn't doubt that. And you stand firm, you wear your gown, so you're already wearing something that gives you also authority. So feel that part. Okay, and be proud of all those years of studying and all those laws that you've learnt, to be able to start your arguments from what they've said. If you're frightened of how they're going to react, then you're not sure in what your content is. So you must be convinced of what you're saying, and it's in that conviction that you're going to portray. Does that help?
Yes, it does. I should always choose my cases based on those that I believe in. But sometimes lawyer must take cases that they don't agree with. So still you have to stand in court and to argue for your client, whether you agree with their case or not. It would be really easy if we would have the luxury to select the cases always. So it's not like I have to give an exam on law, but it's about the facts.
But the way you portray that fact and the way you're going to repeat, if you repeat it 3 times, if you take some of these techniques, you will see that people will believe you more, because you've given a balanced statement, because you've said something 3 times, because you repeat yourself. And with those 3 points, the 3 arguments, the 3 balancing statements, they'll be more convinced, I'm sure, because it's the way that the framework of the language is understood. Try it. Maybe for next Thursday, convince us of a situation, depict the story, and then give us what your argument will be about, and we'll give you feedback. Okay. Nadine, you have your hand raised. Thank you.
I just wanted to add two things. One for Diana to answer. You know, in French, we always say something that you believe, something that you don't believe, and then you counter argue. This is the way, you know, in France, we make all conversation. That's what you say. So for you, when you are presenting a case, you say, what is for this case? What will be against this case? So you prepare yourself to the counter argument, and after you can make, you know, your thing. So for me, for example, when I'm preparing my student for pitching, and especially to answer questions, I ask them to answer to all the questions they will not want to be asked to, you see? So they are prepared to all the things they don't want to answer. And we hope that when they make the pitching in front of investor, they don't have this question they don't want, but if they have, they are ready. So that's what I ask them to do, to prepare all the questions they will not like to be asked. So that's the way you can prepare yourself. You say maybe somebody else will say something again, but then you are prepared. And the other thing is just to answer with small. This is not what the lawyer do. You know, just not to make sentences with more than 3. And I say speaking about sentences against paragraph. You have to answer in sentences and not in paragraph. You see what I mean? And that's all what, because when you start asking with paragraph, we are lost. We don't listen to you anymore. So that's something that you may use. And when I am afraid to go somewhere, and that's what I do, I just prepare everything. I don't want to be asked, but after that, I'm ready. That's my little trick for things I am afraid to answer to.
Thank you, Nadine. Preparation is 90% of success. And we'll talk about negotiation next week, and how to give feedback, Nadine, and how to give bad feedback as well. How can you say things differently? So, so we'll be doing that next week. We'll be talking about how do you advise and how do you transmit for a pitch or for an argument or for a discussion. Any other questions, Alexander?
No, just a comment. I thought there were no such things as bad feedback. It was constructive feedback, the term, I thought.
You're right. Of course it is. It's constructive feedback. But giving feedback that's not necessarily difficult to pass. Sometimes you feel you're being a bad person. So it's not, but I agree. It's definitely constructive feedback. So I will be asking for constructive feedback on this course, because this is my first online course, and the whole point is to understand how it works and how I can improve myself as well. So I will be sending again a little survey after the question and answers on Thursday. So I'm going to ask you to prepare a little speech for us on Thursday so that we can all help you in giving you some constructive, thank you, Alexander, feedback.
It's a pleasure, Helen.
Any other questions? Okay, so we've come to the end of this hour. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm enjoying myself. It's a new experience doing this live. And I had a few technical glitches, but I'm learning how it all works, of being live on Zoom and live on Facebook. So I will see you again on Thursday for question and answers. And I will send out this afternoon, oh dear, I've got an here. I will send out a small sheet of resume of what I've said today and an explanation slightly better of the exercise so that we can work together on Thursday and the live question and answers.
Do you have any catch up on last week's session, as I've missed it?
So we have the live last week's session is actually in the Facebook. So are you part of the driver Facebook group?
Apparently not. These
I
people
will-
say-
There's so this is a course where people signed up and then they came into a Facebook group. So look
Then
for
you- then I must be in it somewhere.
well, I'm going to check, because usually people that come to the Zoom is because they got the link. If they got the link, is because I sent them an email. So
I got the link, I got the email, I must have subscribed and just not. I remember having done something, but I can't remember under which ID. I will find out.
all right. Well, if you haven't, just send me a direct message and I will get you to come to the group. But in principle, you should have had the link to join the group. And in there, you will see the live session of last week, which we were talking about the body state and how you stand and how you hold yourself and how you play with your voice, the different powers of your voice. Okay.
The PDF, it's to be found in the same group.
Everything's on the group. The whole point, this is a better course, as they say. I don't know if I like the word better, as in a better course, but it's the first time I'm running a course on Facebook within a group. And so you put all the information within the group, you get people to participate in the group, and you do a live session. So this is a live Zoom that's being filmed straight into Facebook. And so you can then see the live session and you can also see the question and answer. So it's a 4-week course. We started last Monday. So it's called the driver's seat, or the driver's distinctive speaker's vehicle, where we're going to be talking about the state of the body, the expression, how you advise and give information, and then how you transmit. So we'll talk about death by PowerPoint, or how to avoid death by PowerPoint in the last session. And so using slides as well. But being live on the camera, having the Facebook group, having everything it's like, wow, it's new for me. So I'm also learning. And I ask you is some feedback. So there's also a survey to fill out a couple of questions and tell me what you like, what you don't like, how I can improve, and what I can do for next week. So so that's how it is. So if you can't find the group, Alexander, send me a small message, okay?
We'll find it. No problem.
All right. Thank you so much all for being here. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you on Thursday. Thank you.